Hi, good morning to everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Uh, Good morning. We stopped it at money market, right? Let us continue from money market. We stopped it. What are the instruments that are traded in money market? We went through that, right? It's a treasury bill, commercial paper, certificate of deposit. Then we also say what are the main issues of money market, government banks. I think we went through that. Uh, did I give you any note on money market last class? Can remember I gave something. Did I give small
Yes,
note on?
sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
fine. Okay, so let us start from interbank call money market. So what is this interbank call money market? It is the market which support. It's kind of a not a very formal market. It's informal market among the banks, where the liquidities are exchanged. So when one bank has a short of liquidity, where the other bank has excess liquidity, they can interchange with. So this is required. This liquidity asset ratios 20% bank need to keep. If a bank is short of keeping the 20, there's no other option. Immediately they go to the call money market. It is overnight market, right? So this is among the banks. They virtually connected through internet and they have the connectivity. So they are the banks who have excess liquidity can share with the bank who has a deficit or shortage. So this is the overnight market. But of course, this market is function based on the rate that we know that, right? Standing deposit rate and standing lending. So within that framework, only the rate need to be. So a bank cannot unfairly, a bank who has the excess liquidity cannot unfairly quote a rate. Then it will become a issue for the banking industry. So these rates could be unofficially, or these banks can trade it. Whoever excess liquidity can share with the bank who has a shortage, but the interest rate need to be within the parameter of the two rates that have been quoted by as a policy rate quoted by central bank. So these rate has to be within par with that rate. So within which the bank can excess liquidity bank can overnight either they have the money to deposit with the central bank, or they might go and give it to other bank who are shortage. So this is basically cover the liquidity management. So this, if a bank is short of liquidity, the first place they go into the interbank call money market. That is within the bank itself, they are connected. Kind of a not a very formal, it kind of a informal arrangement among the banks. These are best practices the banks can share with, when because eventually every bank will have facing this in a day-to-day their transaction level. If a bank has suppose say there have been a lot of withdrawals, or the large deposit have been taken by customer, or you dispose a huge loan, then what happen, all of a sudden your liquidity level comes down, a particular bank, then they have to cover it up. They know there is a mandatory level they have to maintain. So where do they go? Either they have to go to central bank or they go to the interbank. So the best option they find is among the banks, they share it. If they're short only, they will go to central bank. If not, they can always share it among the banks. So the money circulate among the banking channels. So it's a best way a bank, when they have a short of liquidity, go to the interbank all money market to share but the rate has to be, the bank who are giving a lending for an overnight for a short 1 or 2 days will be charging the rate that have been quoted, guided by the policy rates. So you can't go and unfairly charge. So we know what are the policy rate, right? So current policy rate as at I think this rate have been reviewed in October 14th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I have given it in highlighted. The above policy rates have been reviewed regular basis. The last review done on 14th October, right? So the last review, as per the last review done, these are the review policy rates are reviewed on a regular basis. The last review done in October, probably November, the next review. As it now, the standing deposit facility rate is 5%. Standing lending facility rate is 6%. Open market operation, where the bank in the bank in the banking industry, when the bank has excess liquidity, they can go and deposit with the central bank. So the central bank offer them standing deposit facility rate, which is 5%. The bank is shortfall, then the central bank will inject money. So that for that, the bank has to pay central bank as a lending rate. So they borrowing from central bank, or they can keep excess liquidity with the central bank. If they are short, they can borrow it from central bank. So these two rates are the policy rates. Then you know also bank rate, where a bank is as a liquidity crisis. Then they have to go to the, so you can see if a bank has a shortfall, there is an issue. So central bank will grant them liquidity at the 9%. Whereas interbank call money market, they can go and take it within the framework of SDR and SLFR. That is the reason interbank call money market is more informal among the banking channel, banking industry. Bank to share the excess liquidity, bank can share, because one bank might have today excess liquidity, tomorrow they might shortfall. And one bank might have shortfall today, tomorrow they will have excess liquidity, right? So that is how the day-to-day operation. So you can't predict what is our financial situation position, because these assets and liabilities keep on changing, right? So you open account, deposit comes, you grant loan, then your asset base will be increasing. When you increase your deposit, your liability increases. So it's assets and liability moving, right? It's not stagnant at all. So your liquidity position keep on changing. So if you're adverse situation, you are deficit, you're short, then you go to the interbank call money market, right? That is the rate. So these markets are as to function within the policy rate, which is 5% and 6%. Then you know what is statutory reserve ratio, which we have already learned, 4%. That is the current rate is 4%. Then what is AWPLR? That is average weighted prime lending rate. That is the rate, best rate bank could giving it to the best customer. So that is the best rate they could give. That is you call AWPLR, average weighted prime lending. These are average weighted. For a 1 week, you take the rate and you average it. So these rates are published by central bank. After, whatever the rate given by commercial bank, that rates are given to central bank. They compile those rates and publish a kind of a statistic to the general public. This is the AWPLR. These are rate quoted by commercial bank to their prime customer. That is what you can see. It's a prime lending rate. That is the best rate, not to the ordinary customer, to their best customer. So the average prime lending rate have been slightly increased compared to last year. 6.95, the average prime lending rate. That is the best rate you can give it to the customer, right? 6.95 as at 18th October. So these are rates are commercial bank can give these rates, and central bank take the rates and they average it and publish a rate called AWPLR. So what is AWPLR? Is the rate given by the best rate given by commercial bank. So that is compiled by central bank and they publish a rate called AWPLR. So that is the best rate a bank could offer to their prime customers, right? So these are what is AWPLR. At least you should know what is AWPLR stand for. Average weighted prime lending. Prime means the best rate, best lending rate, right? Capital market. Now we are moving into the money market. You know, money market kind of a informal market where the short-term securities are traded, right? So you have a lesser revenue generation. But of course, liquidity is very high. Anytime you can easily convert the money market instrument into liquidity, cash form. But of course, the return is very less. Security-wise is better security because you are secured, because you don't take a much risk there. Because these are short-term, you keep it either in treasury bill or in the form of a commercial paper or certificate of deposits. So these are short-term assets in the money market. Then when you're investing in a short-term money market instrument, your return is very limited because you don't take any much of a risk, and it's a short-term by nature. But the capital market contrasts to the money market. It's a very long term. You take risk here. So there is a lot of risk involved in capital market because the maturity is more than 1 year, can running up to any number of years, 5 years, 6 years. Treasury bond and all is running up to 2 to 20 years. Sometimes treasury bond go up to 30 years, right? These are very long term. So the risk is more in a capital market. And capital market is structured. It's a very formal market. There are regulators. Colombo Stock Exchange is there. The Security Exchange Commission coming in. Apart from the banking channel, there are other regulators are involved in a capital market. So the capital market is where the corporate companies are the major player. When the corporate company want to issue shares, collect capital, they have to come to the capital market. If a corporate company want to get a loan from the public, they issue debentures. You know the difference between shares and debenture, right? Shares are the capital. You call equity capital, right? The debentures are debt capital. So you can collect two way of capital. You can ask the You can issue shares and collect your main share. The shares have a different classes, so let us see. But share is the major component of the capital of the bank. Apart from the shares, they also can borrow using their credibility. So the company who is going to borrow from general public has to be listed company, quoted company, must be top 20 or 30 company listed. So then only the people have the confidence to give it in the form of a loan to the company. People buying shares, then people become owners. But when people buying debentures, they are not owners, they are creditors. So the public quoted company have two options. They can issue shares and collect. That is their major core business, collecting capital. Apart from that, when they use their goodwill, good name, they also can borrow. So you have all these instruments, shares, debentures, long-term bond, treasury bond, all are traded in capital market. So the capital market is very formal market and long-term by nature. The high risk are taken. So you can see you are taking high risk. Therefore, the returns also much more than the money market. So you have a good return. You can. So it's an investor's perspective. He has to decide whether he confine to money market or he goes into the capital market, because he only knows the requirement of his funds, whether he need the funds back for a short term or he doesn't want these funds to be utilized any near future. So he can keep the money for a longer term, longer tenor. That is what you call capital market. So the capital market, in brief, it's a longer tenor, not short as money market. And it is a market where you can have a credit and capital is collected. Any public quoted company want to collect their capital, they have to go to the capital market. When they want to issue debenture and collect debt capital, you call debt. When you issue debenture, it's kind of a borrowing from general public. That is what you call debt capital. Share capital is you are issuing shares. That is you call equity capital. Equity means capital. So you are collecting equity is your main core revenue, core inflow of funds, not revenue, core inflow of funds to the company is called shares. And in the meantime, if the company is very good company, as a good standing, they also can use their name and can issue debentures to borrow. Sometimes you can see if a banks come and issue debenture, you could see in the newspaper it has been oversubscribed, because banks are doing well. Banks also public quoted companies. Banks are doing very well. When bank issue debentures, the debentures are oversubscribed. What do you mean by oversubscribed? When you want to issue say 100 debenture, there are application came for 300. That is oversubscribed. That means people are willing to buy that debenture. They feel the bank is doing very well and they are secured and they don't mind to give it to the bank. Generally, debentures may running into 5 years, minimum 5 years, and they give a good rate also. So just think, if somebody comes, some bank comes to the market and say, we are issuing debentures and we are giving at the rate of 9 to 10%. Now, as an investor, or you think that you are a general person, individual, you have money, 1 million. Now you are looking for an opportunity. Where can I invest prudently to earn more? And by the time, and in the meantime, you need to have a security for your investment, right? So you want a higher return, and in the meantime, it has to be very stable investment, right? So you look for opportunities. There are so many avenues. You can buy shares. You can go to the bank and put a 1-year FD, then roll it over for next year and renewal. So that is one way of investing, a fixed deposit. Or you can buy investing in treasury bond, more than 2-3 years, you can investing in treasury bond, or you can buy shares, or you can buy unit trust, or you can buy debentures, all a long-term investment, right? So there are avenues there. Then you got to realize, it has to be very carefully, you have to scrutinize all these aspects put in together and which investment I'm going to. If a person doesn't want to take any risk, he might go for a treasury bond, because the treasury bond is risk-free, because you are lending it to the government. The government never going to default, government going to pay you. So that is the best, more secured way of investing is long-term is treasury bond. Short-term treasury bill. So the treasury bill comes under money market, treasury bond comes under capital market. So if you want to invest only, you want a fairly good return, moderate return, but you also want to ensure that your investment are with a safe hand, then you select treasury bond. Or you don't mind go and investing in a debenture where the rates are little more than treasury bond. Somebody offering 11% for next 5 years. So if you are a prudent investor, you might look at, okay, what is the current market rate for last 1 or 2 years? It's only FD rate is 6%, 7%. So if somebody going 11%, it's very good rate. So you might take a chance and invest. That is the decision you take. You are taking a risk because in the event you are investing for debenture for 5 years, that means your investment is tied up for next 5 years. But in the meantime, if the rate is going up, you don't get the debenture. If the debenture is a fixed rate, you don't get any increase because it's a fixed rate for 5 years. Some banks might come and say 50% we give you return in fixed, some 50% floating rate. So if the rate goes up, you have an opportunity. So there are flexibility. So debenture could be issued either way. Generally, the debentures are issued in fixed rate, right? So this is the capital market. So you can see Security Exchange Commission is coming there. That is SEC, right? So they are the people monitoring all the public quoted companies' share operations of Security Exchange Commission. That is one of the regulators, like central bank monitoring all the banks, all the corporate companies, all the public quoted companies, private companies are monitored by Security Exchange Commission. That is the body, SEC. So Security Exchange Commission, even including banks, are also monitored by them. The bank also considered as a public quoted company. So any public quoted company in Sri Lanka is monitored by Security Exchange Commission. That is the body, government body. They monitor. They only set law. They only give you
So when we talk about debentures, do we get an annual? Excuse me, sir. When we talk about debentures, sir, do we get an annual return or is it like long term after 5 years?
Very good question. No. Generally, debentures are issued. They give a rate annually. They give a return annually because the investor who wants to invest for 5 years, definitely he won't wait for 5 years to get the entire return. So dividends are the returns are in the interest rate, but they offer for debentures are paid by annual. Every annually you get paid. So you every annually they pay you interest. Let's say if a bank come and issue at the rate of 12% or 11% for 5-year debenture, every 1 year is completed, you will be paid interest, right? So that is how the issue, because it's longer investment. The return, every investor looking for a return, and the return cannot be for a maturity period of the investment. It has to be annual, at least annual. Otherwise, no investor going to go for, unless otherwise, if the investors who have the money, excess money, they don't want the money for next 5 years, only go for a debenture where the interest also will be paid at maturity. So that is substantial amount you will get. Say if you at the rate of 11%, if you're investing 1 million, you might get 1.6 million at the maturity. But no investor would like to get the entire return at maturity after 5 years. No. So everybody want to get the return annually. So debentures returns are paid annually, right? So okay, capital market is monitored by Security Exchange Commission. What are the capital market instruments? Yes, treasury bonds, shares, debenture. These are the major investment instrument, capital instruments, right? So remember name: treasury bill, commercial paper, certificate of deposits are money market instrument. Capital market instruments are treasury bonds, shares, debenture. Remember, these are long-term investment, including treasury bond, right? Long-term, more than a year. Can up to 3 years, can up to, for debentures are generally 5 years. You can have the shares for lifetime, no problem, indefinitely. Or if you want to sell it, you can go to the secondary market and sell it and get the capital gain, right? So shares also can be sold at any time. But it's people investing in shares are long-term investment, right? So say there's a new banks coming, for example, right? There's a new bank going to come. So how do they collect their capital? They have to come to the market. So that is what I think we are going to look at it next slide. Okay, no, I will explain to you. There's something called primary market, secondary market. When it comes, I will explain. Okay, now in the capital market, who are the main issuers of capital market? Definitely government will come. The treasury bonds are issued by government, right? And banks are coming. Banks issue debentures, and corporate companies, they issue shares. Including banks and corporate companies, all are corporate entities. So the main issuers are considered. Not everybody here. The main issuers are government, banks, and corporate entities or corporate companies. So the main investors, once again, the banks comes there. Banks has a liquidity. Banks has more funds coming as a deposit. So they look for investment. When they don't have a loans to grant, remember when the bank collect deposit, say bank has 1,000 deposit. So bank has to utilize the deposit to repay the depositor's interest. So bank has to utilize the 1,000 after keeping all that their reserve requirement, everything. They have a 900. I'm just giving an example, right? Say 1,000 is a total deposit. They keep about 50 to 100 liquidity problem others. Now they have a 900 to lend. So bank, when they give the entire 900 to lend, if they're giving a loan entire 900, then it's good if there are available, good lending is available. But when you analyze all the lending proposals, some are not good. So you don't want to take a chance to lend the entire 900,000. The market is not that good. So you are giving loans only for 500. Balance 400 you have. So you need to make an investment. Otherwise, how do you repay? Because the entire 900,000 you got it from the depositors. You need to pay the interest to the depositors. But you got, after keeping all the liquidity for 100, balance 900 you can lend, but you don't have a project to lend. So that doesn't mean, remember, when the depositors are coming money, bank is taking the money and bank is giving loan to everybody. No, the loan has to be, that is for the loan, because you know, if you go and give the entire 900, what will happen? You will have a bad loans, because you are gone and granted to everybody, right? Remember, then you are going to lose your capital. So bank is very prudent. They have to be very careful when they are lending. That's what we see 5Cs and all, right? That is the reason, because bank is, when they are lending, they know they can get a good return because they charge interest more. But in the meantime, if they don't have a proper lending, they have to utilize these funds to earn something. Then they look for opportunity of investing in treasury bill, treasury bond. If it's a short term, bank also investor. Bank also having public money. They want to invest. They also buy shares. They also investing in whatever other investments. The bank also contribute. Or bank can lend it to the other company, other bank, or other financial institution overseas. So all that is possible. So these are investment opportunities, right? So okay. So the main investors are bank, of course, the insurance company. I told you there are two sets of insurance company and the provident fund, which has monthly collection. Everybody take insurance policy. They pay the premium. Some are pay monthly, some are pay quarterly, some are pay biannual. They pay the premium. And EPF, ETF also collecting, all the employees in the countries are contributing to EPF. It is a fund build up over a period of the employer's total workable period, right? So if the employee, sorry, it's not employee, the employee. If the employee has a 25 to 30 years of service, until completing 30 to 35 years service, he is going to contribute to the EPF funds. What is contribution? From his salary, he is contributing 8%. His employer will contribute 12%. So from his salary, 20% is setting aside under his EPF. So that money goes to the EPF fund. So you can just imagine, every employee's 20% salary go to EPF, mean EPF is flooded with money. What are they going to do with this money? They come to the market and they also looking for a ample opportunity to invest the EPF funds. Then only they can get good return and giving it to the EPF members. That is how, if you are a employee, if you are working in any businesses, you will, from your salary, EPF is deducted, right? You from your salary 8% deducted. Your employer, your owner, whom are you working for, that company will contribute 12% of your salary. You contribute 8% from your salary. 20% is set aside. Say one person has a salary of 1 lakh, he contribute 8%, 8,000. His employer contribute 12,000. So altogether 20%. That is mean 20,000 from each month is from his salary kept aside. So that person working in a company for, let's say, 35 years, is he only going to get the 20,000 per month, and into number of say 1 year, 20 into 240,000 into number of years? Is that only later? No. This money can be utilized by the EPF funds to invest. So that is the reason, though your actual contribution may be 5 million, your dividend, your return may be other 7 million. So you get about 12 million. Why? Because the longer tenor, you are going to keep the money with EPF. The EPF has to utilize that money to invest. That is the reason EPF and ETF pension funds are always the bigger investor in Sri Lanka. They are billions of money. These are public, all the employees' money. They are collected as EPF. They are the people looking after the funds, and they're going to pay you at the time of your retirement. When they pay you, they are going to pay a substantial amount, because they are going to have this fund for each person at least average 25 to 30 years. right? So that is where you have more funds with EPF and Provident Fund, right? Financial market also can be categorized. This is what I try to tell you. The financial market also can be classified as a primary and secondary market. Primary is when you want to issue a first time issue shares. How do you call that? Anybody? What is the name? When you want to issue a share, there are 3-letter word. What is that word? Anybody knows? Have you ever heard? What is the word? 3-letter word. When a company issue first time shares?
IPO.
IPO, yes. What does IPO stand for? Initial public offering. IPO.
Initial public offering.
Initial public offering. Yes, yes, good. The primary market is the market for the new issue shares and debt securities. So the primary market is the first time when a company issues share, they have to come to the primary market. First time, right? So the primary market is the creation. The securities are created in the primary market. So it's a creation of security done in primary market. Whatever security created in the public primary market are traded in the secondary market, right? Say, let's say a company, Monte Capital, say they come to the primary market in the form of initial public offering, IPO. That means they are first time collecting their capital by issuing shares. What is shares? The ownership of any entity in a smaller component of ownership of any business is called shares. If you are having a owner, you say a bank as a ownership. If you are investing in a bank shares, what does it mean? You are also contributing in a smaller component of the ownership of the bank. You can say, I am also older, 1,000 shareholder. I am also small way, I am contributing to the capital. So you are also kind of a owner, but in a small contribution. That is what you call shares, right? So everybody want to invest in shares of good companies because that is one of the good investment. On a long term, it's a very good investment, share market. But sometimes if you look at share market for a shorter term, it's not good. Some people lose their money in stock market, share market, because they're trying to get better benefit for a shorter period. No, shorter period, you can't go to the share market. It's a longer period. If you want to invest, you have to forget about the buying shares and keep it for a future investment. Then you go to the share market. There are people who are following the market and trading and getting a return. That is, you have to be on contact with the share market fully. That means your profession is investing in share market. So like there are investors, right? There are investing company. Now EPF might have a investing person. His job is to invest shares and earn profit. So he study the share market and his job is to investing in shares. So that kind of a person, the follow-up of the share market, he knows in and out of share market at any moment. So that if you have that kind of a capability, then buying and selling shares shorter period also possible. But if you're a normal individual, you want to invest in share market, no, you don't follow the share market because you have other job to do. It is only part of your investment, right? So if you buy shares, you have to forget about it, keep it for some time, and you can see it's a capital gain. So I will just share with you some of the people I know in the banking. There are some individuals who bought the shares at the rate of 25 rupees. 10 rupees value, 25 rupees, right? They keep it for every year, they get a dividend also. Let's say some bank giving 8% dividend, 7% dividend. Every year you get a dividend, right? Apart from that, over a period of next 10 years, that shares that he bought 25, he sold it for 350 rupees after 10 years. Just imagine the capital gain he got. After 10 years, 25 shares gone up to 350 rupees. See the number of, that is the real investment. That is what you call capitals are long term. Because you don't come to the market and you buy shares today and you're expecting next week the share to go up. No, it won't operate that manner. Share market is something that you have to a long term. That is what it comes under capital market. So capital market always the long term investment. Like when you're buying a property, also kind of a long term investment, right? So buying asset is also kind of a capital investment, right? Secondary market where the traded shares are, whatever the created shares are traded in the secondary market. Say initial public offering, some banks comes there, you buying that shares. That activity take place in a primary market. Once you bought the shares, you will have a CDS account, you will have a central deposit, you have to open account like bank account, your account will be open with the broker. Then the broker, you have to go through the brokers. Remember, when you are buying and selling shares, you have to go through the broker. There is a CDS, it's a central deposit system. You have to open account with them. Then through the agent, you through the broker, you buy and sell shares, right? Whatever initial public offering you bought the shares has to be deposited to your bank account. So it won't call it as a bank account. It's a kind of a share account. You have to have a CDS account. That is central deposit system is the main body. With them, you have to maintain an account. So you can have 5-6 accounts with the different brokers. You have a broker. With each broker, you can open a share because you prefer to deal with a lot of brokers because shares are traded with the brokers, right? So that through the broker, you buy and sell. That kind of operations are called secondary. These are traded, already issued shares are traded in the secondary market. So you should know what is primary market, initial. So you can say, example, when a public quoted company, you can write example, when a public quoted company issue their shares first time, to collect the capital, to issue their shares first time, to collect capital. Within bracket, you can say IPO, initial public offering. INITIAL, initial public offering. OFFERING, initial public offering. When a public quoted company issue their shares first time to collect their capital, initial public offering is happening in a primary market. That kind of activity taking place in a private. So IP, initial public offering, always remember primary market. What is secondary market example? So buying and selling through the Colombo Stock Exchange. So you can say buying and selling of issued shares, buying and selling of issued shares through the stockbrokers, buying and selling issued shares through the stockbrokers are happening in the secondary market. So now we are going to look at treasury bills. So we learned what is money market. Money market main instrument is treasury bill. So now we are looking at what is treasury bill. This is money market, right? Treasury bond only capital market. So what is treasury bill? Treasury bill is you are investing with the government, right? So you are in the form of investing with the government for a shorter term. You can see in the third point, it's 91 days, 183 months, 6 months, 1 year. Right? It's 91 days, 182 days, 364 days, right? So this is how the treasury bills are issued. So remember here, the fourth point, you can say treasury bills are sold at a discount to the face value, which is paid at maturity. Can anybody tell me what do you mean by discount to the face value? What do you mean by discount to the face value? Discount to the face value.
So if the face value is 1,000, if the face value is 1,000, we sell it for 900, like that.
Yes, correct. Very good. Yes, face value mean, yes, if the face value, let's say there is a face value of treasury bill is 100,000. Now the treasury bill rates are, let's say 7.5% they're offering. Let's say worst come to worst, they're offering 8% now. Treasury bill rates are slightly gone up. Let's say they are offering 8 rupees, 8%. So if you are investing 100,000, 3 months treasury bill, 3 months treasury bill rate is 8%, right? So how much you get? 8% for 100,000, which is 8,000, You are depositing for 3 months, or let's say you are depositing for 1 year. So let us calculate for easy purpose. Let us say you are investing for 1 year, 100,000. Rate is say 8%. So how much you need to pay? The face value is 100,000.
92,000.
Yes, 92,000. So understand that your treasury bill value is 100,000. Discount to face value mean the face value is 100,000, but you don't pay 100,000 to buy the treasury bill. You only pay 92,000. It is sold at a discount rate. Discount mean lesser than the face value. Premium mean more than the face value is premium. So two things are there. Premium is more than the face value. Discount is less than the face value. So here it's discounted. That means when the face value is 100,000 treasury bill, you are investing less than, because the interest is upfront paid in treasury bill. So in other words, if I want to invest in a treasury bill 100,000, I know my return now itself. I only pay 92,000, but I know I get 100,000 after 3 months. So I am only investing. I have 100,000. I can spend my 8,000 now itself. I know for sure after 3 months I get my 100,000. So you follow that? So you invest only 92, right? So you get that 100,000 at the maturity. At the maturity, you have to wait at the maturity 3 months or 6 months or 1 year. You get the maturity. So discount to face value mean you are holding 100,000 treasury bill, but you have not invested 100,000. You are invested the discounted value. Discounted value. What do you mean by discounted value? If it is 8% for 100,000, 8,000 rupees. That 8,000 rupees you need not to pay. The interest is calculated and minus from the face value you investing. So the face value will be paid at the maturity. So you understand the concept. So suppose say you want to invest in a FD, you put 100,000 into the bank. The bank will pay you interest after 1 year. So you have to invest now 100,000, right? But you get the return 8,000. Bank also pays 6%. Let's say you get that 6,000 rupees, 6% for 100,000, 6,000 rupees at the end of 1 year. But you have to currently invest 100,000. But if you are investing in treasury bill, remember, you don't put 100,000. Your treasury bill is 100,000, but you only invest 92,000. Why? The 8%, the interest you are going to get at the maturity is already paid to you. So you only invest 92,000. So let's say you have 100,000, you have option to put FD or enter into treasury bill. So what is happening? If you put into FD, you have to wait your 100,000 to come 108,000 at the maturity. So you get the interest at the maturity. Let's say now you have 100,000. If you are investing in treasury bill, you are enjoying 8,000 now itself. Why? You only invest 92,000. You can enjoy your 8,000 now itself. You spend whatever benefit, but you get your 100,000 again after maturity. So you have been paid earlier. That is called discount to the face value, right? So that is how treasury bills are sold. Treasury bills is easily be converted into cash. That is what the treasury bills are short term. Always remember the money market instruments are easily convertible into liquidity form because they are very short term in tenor. So you can easily convert it into liquidity form. So that is where treasury bills are considered liquid assets. Yes, they are always considered as high liquid assets. The difference between purchase price and the face value is the interest income to the owner. So what is purchase price? Purchase price is 92,000. Face value is 100,000. So you are paid by the difference between face value and the purchase price is the interest income. So the purchase price is 92, face value is 100,000. In other words, your interest income is 8,000, which you got it now itself. You only invest in 92,000, but you get the 100,000 maturity. So therefore, the treasury bills are discounted to the face value. Treasury bonds opposite. No, here not discounted. You have to wait till the maturity. Generally, treasury bills are running up to the different maturity period. You can say 2 years to 30 years, very, very long term. Here the returns are paid biannually. Every 6 months you get a interest component. So you call the interest are paid by coupon. You get a coupon. The coupon are given for you to claim the interest. So the central bank, when you buy treasury bond, you will be given coupon to claim interest. So you can claim interest twice a year. So every 6 months you paid your interest because this is long-term investment. So you have been paid because this is the way the government attracting people to buy treasury bond. You are investing in a long term, you are getting your return every 6 months. So the people who have excess money can keep it for a treasury bill and get a good rate generally treasury bond rate must be little better than the treasury bill rate because you are investing for a longer period. Your funds can be utilized by the government for the longer purposes, longer maturity. So you will be paid a fairly good return, moderate return compared to treasury bill, right? So these are long-term investment, right? This is not a discounted value. This is like a FD. You invest 1 million, you will be paid interest biannually. Biannual mean twice a year. Biannual mean twice a year, right? Treasury bills and bonds are issued scriptless. Yes, they. You don't. It's like a shares. You.
Now can hear, sir. Now can hear.
So commercial paper. I explained you. You heard right.
No, sir. We didn't hear that part, sir.
Security prices.
That is also no. We didn't hear, sir. Only treasury bonds. Treasury bonds done. That's done.
Right. Okay. I think there are 3 minutes. They said there had been I didn't know they came and adjusted. Right. Okay. Security prices. The security prices. There are two ways you look at the security prices. Sorry for that interruption. I think the entire connection gone here. So there are Wi-Fi connections, internet connection got disconnected. Now they restore the problem. Right. Okay. Now security prices. Now there are two prices: bid price and offer price. Say, for example, there is a property for sale. There is an asset. Let's say the market value of the asset is, let's say, 10 million, right? 10 million. Now there is somebody who is going to offer to buy that property 9 million, right? There is a seller who owns the property willing to sell at the rate of 9.5 million. So you can see the market price of the property is 10 million. And there is somebody who can buy that property at the rate of, is bidding a price for 9.5, 9 million. But the seller is willing to sell at the rate of 9.5 million. So here the three prices are coming in. The market price, which is you call prices are decided by supply and demand. That is how the market prices are decided. So the market price is 10 million similar properties or whatever assets or whatever, right? So that property is could be sold at the rate of 10 million. But the owner of the property willing to sell for 9.5 million. That is his price. That is the price he offer. But there is somebody interested in buying that is bidding for 9 million. So you can see these three prices. Bidding prices where the buyer willing to buy. The offer price or ask price is the seller willing to sell. The market price, which is determined by the demand and supply, right? So that is how these prices are structured in a security market. Take example, sometimes market forces can vary, right? So I was quoting an example. I am repeating the same thing. Let's take example. Some of the commodities you consume when you go to market. Take example, this potato or tomatoes. Take tomato example. When you go to a tomato, when you go to the market, sometimes you can see tomatoes are sold at 250 rupees. Sometimes it dropped to 150 rupees. Sometimes less than 100 rupees. Why is that? Because all of a sudden, the supply increases more than the demand. When the supply increases more than the demand, the temptation, the prices to come down. Or the demand remains same and the supply, less supply. Right now, currently you would have earned that there had been a situation people are going behind the cement, gas, milk powder. These commodities were where there had been a scarcity. So what is happening? What was happening? What have been happening even now? People are having money to looking for a cement to buy, but you don't get that. So there is a demand remains same or if not more, but there is no supply at all. So how the market forces work? The prices are, even if somebody offering 1,500, people are willing to buy. The prices have gone up. That is the market price, right? So now you know bid price, ask price, market price. You can listen to me, right?
Yes, sir, can.
Right, fine. Because I don't know whether you are listening. I hope the connection is restored now, right? Okay. So you have a bid price, you have ask price. Ask price is mean other offer price where the seller is willing to sell. Buyer is willing to buy is called bid price. The market prices are decided by the market forces. So we were talking about the commercial paper. So commercial paper is kind of a short term, a public quoted company which has a high reputation, high rated company. So take example John Keels. John Keels want to collect some money for a shorter period, 1 year project. They are going to introduce some a different restaurant model, right? So they want some money. So they approach the bank. Bank say 1 year loan we can give it at the rate of 12% or 11%. That is the prime lending rate, for example, right? Example. So they negotiated and it was almost about 9%. 10% they agreed. Bank is agreed. But still John Keels thinking now, why are we going for 10%? Can't we take it from the general public by issuing commercial paper at the rate of 9%? So if the treasury bill rates are 8%, if the FDs are 7%, why can't we go to the general public, issue commercial paper and collect? Because these are high rated company, but no security, unsecured. Remember, unsecured. These are basically the investor only trusting the stability of the company and investing for a short term called commercial paper. So they know that John Keels never going to collapse. John Keels fundamentally because stronger company, conglomerate, a group of companies. So the people can invest in commercial paper short term. So it's for John Keels group, it's very prudent decision. Rather than taking a loan from at the rate of 10%, they can issue 8.5 or 9% and borrow from the general public by issuing commercial paper. So that is one way of investment, commercial paper. So these are instruments issued by public quoted company to borrow from general public without offering any security. A commercial paper. It's a bit of a risky, but only thing is the investors knows, though there is no security given for the investment, it's a short-term tenor, but the company has to be solid. It's not every company can issue commercial paper. It has to be high-rated credit worthiness. The company has to be totally high-rated, kind of a blue chip company. You know what is blue chip company? That the company doing better in any country. Top 10 company, or you might say top 20 companies. When they rated, they look at their stability, profitability, their efficiencies, and their growth over a period of last decade. Everything looked into, and they have been ranked. So if it is a ranked company, the investor willing to invest in commercial paper. Then come debentures. Debenture is a long-term investment. These are public quoted company collecting debt capital from the general public. That is called debenture, right? So the debentures are generally medium and long term. So when you say more than 1 year, up to 2 to 3 years also you can invest. It's a medium. Long term, more than 5 years also sometimes debentures are issued. So generally debentures are 5 years, right? So this is considered as medium and long term, right? So debenture. This is public quoted company issuing debentures to collect debt capital. They are borrowing from general public. So the company offering a good price. So they offer the debenture at the rate of more than the FD rate and a longer tenor. So if you are a investor, potential investor, you have excess money, you don't want that money to be utilized for next 10 years, might as well invest in debentures or buy some shares. So these are the good investment for a longer tenor. So debentures, example. So you can see debentures are unsecured, established institution. Example, you can say John Keels Group. Example, John Keels Group. Banks, main bank like HNB, Commercial, Sampath, all these banks you can put example. John Keels Group, right? LOLC, all these they are doing better. LOLC, right? Or those are example, right? Aelis Group, John Keels Group, right? Banks you can put some name. The holders of the debentures are considered as creditors. I think the considered creditors are joined. It has to be considered. The second point, considered space creditors. I think there's a typo error. Considered creditors. So it has the debenture holders are not considered as owners. They are creditors. They get the preference. Remember, when you are investing in a company, other than the shares, you will be credited. You will be treated as a creditor. Either you are buying commercial paper or debentures, or even preferential share, all that is you considered as a creditor, right? So you consider as a creditor, you get a priority in the event you get, when the company pay dividend, you get a priority. The debentures are paid interest. It's not dividend, it's called interest. So because you are given a loan to the company, that is what investors have been considered as a creditor. The income is generated is not considered as a dividend, is considered as a interest. So debenture, you get only interest, right? So you can say debenture holder is entitled to payment before the shareholders. Yeah, in the event of the liquidation. So what do you mean by liquidation? When the company is going to close down, company has to repay the investors. Shareholders, they have to repay their debenture holders. So the debenture holder get the priority. So the company has to settle the first debenture. Why the last shareholder? Why the shareholders become last? Can anybody tell me?
Because the shareholders are the owners.
Shareholders are the owners, yes. Perfectly correct. Very good. Shareholders are owners. If you are an owner, remember, you have to settle everybody. Whatever balance only you will take it because you are owner. So shareholders, remember, they don't get any priority, but they have advantage. Shareholders has advantage. They have the voting right. They can take part in the meeting and all that, what is happening in the bank. And also remember dividend. If the bank decide to give a good dividend, they get more return. That is the benefit of shareholders. But if you are only investing in debenture, you are not an owner. You are just a creditor. But remember, when it comes to liquidation, when the company is going to close down, the debentures will get paid first, not the shareholder, because shareholder is considered as owner. Owner has to wait. If anything, if they don't, even sometimes they lose the capital. If the company doesn't have any money, they don't get paid. Sometimes shareholder lose their capital. Because when the company is doing well, they have been better off. When the company is not doing well, they, as a owner, they have to bear up, right? They have to sustain their investment, right? So it's up to the shareholders. But debentures, remember, debentures holders are considered as a creditor, not as a owner. Now comes shareholders. Yes, these are the people. What do you mean by shares? It's a small component, equal proportion of ownership of any institution is considered as a shares. A unit, a small unit of ownership. So if you say the particular bank's share capital is 1 million share, if you're holding 10,000 share, you have a small component of this 1 million shares. You also own so you're holding a units as a 10,000 units, or maybe you're holding 100 units. The minimum of shares is 100. The minimum shares you can buy is 100 and multiples, right? Initial public offering, that's how it comes. But in secondary market, you can buy. But generally, it's multiples of 100, right? Generally, shares are traded in multiples of 100, right? So unit of ownership is considered as a capital. Entitled equal claim company's profit. Yes, they can. Whenever there is a dividend declared, they can get a more profit. The company loss come also, they have to bear up. So that is the attribution as a owner. If you have become an owner in any entity, those are attribution. You have a benefit as well as disadvantage, right? So that is the attribution for owner. Shareholders are paid dividend, which is a percentage of the profit of the company. There are two different classes of shares. One is ordinary share and preference share. What is ordinary share and preference share difference? Can anybody tell me what is the difference between ordinary and preference? Ordinary shares are the major class of shares. Every institution issue major class of shares. But there are people, when they're investing, they prefer to invest preference share. Why? Say a new company want to collect their capital. But there are people who want to invest, but they don't know whether the company will make a profit. So therefore, they prefer different class of share, but they want to invest. But they should know how much return they get. So the preference shares are the company issues shares with quoting what is the return they are going to give. That is what you call preference share. So the preference shares is a kind of a, though they are also owner of the, they are having ownership, they are holding a shares. But the only thing is they have been preference shares. So what is preference shares? So you can see the difference between ordinary and preference share. Owned by the common shareholders. So yeah, all the common shareholders are considered as ordinary shareholders. They are entitled for the voting right. Yes, shareholders are having a voting right. Entitled for a dividend and capital gain. Obviously, what do you mean by capital gain? And can anybody explain what is capital gain? What do you mean by capital gain? Example, capital gain. Okay, I will tell you. If you're buying shares for 100 rupees, all right, you sell it at the rate of 175 rupees after 1 year. Each share you are making a profit of 75 rupees. That is you call capital gain. When you are buying shares, remember, until you hold the shares, you have been paid dividend. If you are holding more than 1 year, you will be get dividend because you are holding shares, you are entitled for a dividend. That is a percentage of profit the bank make. They give you in the form of a return called dividend. Other than dividend, you also can sell the market in the secondary market. You can sell the share and earn something. That is called capital gain. That is fluctuation of your security price. You bought the shares at the rate of 100 rupees. You sold it at the rate of 175 rupees. The 75 rupees make a profit of each share. That is you call capital gain. So remember, by acquiring shares, you have the dividend, you have the capital gain. So that is the ordinary shareholder. That is a normal shareholder. Incorporate with a higher risk as well as settled after the, yeah. So there is a risk you might not get your capital because if the company is liquidated, company is bankrupt and you don't get, the company become insolvent, you don't get the priority. Only the preference share will be paid. So now looking at the preference share, no entitled for the voting. Preference share people don't get the voting right. They don't get the voting right. Entitled for a dividend and also they have the capital gain. Very lesser risk. You can see lower risk. So the people, when a company want to issue share, they company know there are people who want to invest in a company, but they don't want to take a risk. They want to get the priority at the time of liquidation. They want the security. So that is the reason company having a different class of share. A preference share also some of the company issues. Generally in Sri Lanka, we issue most of the time ordinary shares. Preference shares are generally issued for the family members of shareholders or within the group of company preference share. But generally, the usage of ordinary shares is the majority, right? So I have taken a slide for difference between money market and the capital market. Now we went through the money market and we also gone through the capital market. Now you know the difference, right? So the meaning short term, yes, money market short term, long term. That is the security tenor. Treasury bill, commercial paper, trade credits, shares, debentures, bonds. Yes, that is the instrument. Risk low, very low. Comparatively high because you keep the investment for a longer period. So many things could happen in a longer period. Within a year, more than a year. Return of investment less, yes, obviously, because you are investing for a shorter period, your return is less compared to the longer period. Right, now we are looking at the exchange rate, right? Have you all got any other document than this presentation today? Have you all got any other document today? Forex notes. Have you all got any notes today? You have these notes today. Have you all got this? Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, we can see the screen.
Have you all got this note? Okay, never mind. You can see the screen, right? So, right. So this is the note I think I shared. Probably I don't know. Just check it whether you got it. If not, I will tell them to share with you. You also have given the capital market, money market and capital market different. So you can, when you get a question in exam paper, you have both way to write. But I prefer this way to answer. This way to answer, right? Difference between this is how you should answer. Always when you ask them what are the difference between money market, capital market, structure you answer this way, right? So then the examiner get a very clear picture rather than this way. I have given both ways. In this note, I have given key difference between money market and capital. This is most of the time some people used to write this way, but it's better that you write other way. So here also I have structures different answer for this way, right? So be aware of how to tackle exam question, right? Coming into exchange rate. What do you mean by exchange rate? Exchange rate is a value of one country's currency in terms of another, right? Value of one. So we are looking at Sri Lanka rupee against dollar. How much Sri Lanka rupee we have to pay for a $1? That is exchange rate. So value of one country's currency in terms of another. So Sri Lanka rupee, how much we got to pay Sri Lanka rupee to acquire $1? So currently about 202 rupees. That is called exchange rate. So the exchange rates are determined on the foreign exchange. 24 hours, the foreign exchange market, as I told you, foreign exchange market is open for 24 hours except the weekend. All 5 days of foreign exchange market is open, traded, right? So you can buy, sell foreign exchange, right? The dealers are doing that. Every bank has a dealers. You know, they buy foreign exchange. They have inflows, they have outflows. Now the currently you should aware that the currently we are very much lesser foreign reserve. Therefore, now some of the smaller banks finding very difficulty to even make outward payment because they don't have foreign reserves. The bigger banks are doing it because they have an inflow. The bigger bank has an inflow. They have remittances coming in for worker remittances. There are some of the bigger customer doing exports. So there are some inflows are coming there. So when there are inflows, the bank are in a position to do some outflow. Now, since the foreign reserve deficiency is there, the banks are very selective in executing foreign exchange transaction. So that is exceptionally for a situation in Sri Lanka prevailing now. Open trade is for a short term and the things to improve in near future, right? So that is how the market fluctuates, right? What is the buying rate? What is the selling rate? Can anybody explain? When banks saying we are buying rate and we are selling rate, can anybody explain what is buying rate, what is selling rate? How do you look? How do you say buying rate and selling rate? Is it from the bank perspective or the customer perspective? You all are there, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. No, I don't know whether you all are there or not. That's the reason I'm keep on checking. Right. What is what now is you remember buying and selling rate? You have to always remember not from the customer's point of view. It's a bank point of view. Always remember. I think some people are unable to understand what is buying rate, selling rate. They always get confused. Remember, simply it's like this. When bank buying, remember when bank buying means customer point of view selling. So some people get confused. I'm selling. No, why? No, you are selling. You are not a here. Look at the bank. What is bank doing? Say, I have $100, right? I want to give it into the bank. I want to get a rupee. Now, when I'm taking 100 rupees, what is bank is doing? Bank is buying from me. So the bank will apply a buying rate because they are buying dollar from me. For me, is sale. That doesn't matter. For a bank point of view, bank. So bank apply buying rate when they are buying foreign exchange from anybody, they apply the buying rate. And bank selling foreign exchange for the customer, they apply the selling rate. Generally, bank buying rate is lesser than the selling rate, right? So say bank is buying dollar from me at the rate of 201 rupee. They are buying dollar from me. So the bank apply the buying rate. I have $100, I go to the bank and bank give me 201 rupee. Let's say I am in other 1 month's time, I am traveling. I want dollar now. I go to the bank. Now bank is selling at the rate of 204 rupees. Because bank is selling dollars to me. I am buying, bank is selling. So remember, when the bank sell, they sell it somebody when you are comparing buying and selling rate, bank selling rates are always higher than the buying rate. So they buy the dollar at the rate of, so that is the reason when you go to the bank, bank has quoted a two rate. Their dollar buying rate today, their dollar selling rate today. You can see always the selling rate is higher than their buying rate. Because when they buy, they're buying at a reasonable rate. When they are selling, they will edit up their profit margin. That is the foreign exchange profit they earn. So they sell it, their selling rate, bank selling rates are higher than their buying rate. So that is you call buying and selling rate, right? So don't get confused. Always look at the bank perspective. So you have 4 type of rate: cash rate, term rate, spot rate, forward rate. So I'm just giving you an example. What is cash rate? The transaction happening today, settlement also happening today is called cash rate. Everything happening today. You are doing a transaction and the settlement also you are doing today. You call cash rate. Both are happening simultaneously. Term mean you are doing transaction today, settlement tomorrow. Settlement tomorrow. That is what tomorrow only term rate. Tomorrow. Spot rate generally transaction today, settlement 2 days after the transaction. 2 days. That we call spot rate. Then also you have a forward rate. Forward rate, you do the transaction today, but settlement will be future. Maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. That is future. For example, now go to the other. I have given some example in the note. Here in the other note, I'll tell you. Then you have a. Here also I have given money market, capital market. You can go through that, right? Look at this. Look at this. I was quoting see, look at here now. Cash date. So I will just giving you there. Here you have cash date, spot date, term date. Date I am explaining to you in a date as well as the rate. In date, if the transaction taking place today, settlement also done be today. That is what I say. The date of the transaction say today. Definition. Cash date. Cash date mean we are going to learn 2 things: cash date and the cash rate, right? The cash date also can be considered as trade date. So the cash date mean if say the transaction say today, if the today is 25th June 2021. Then the cash date is also same date. So you can see the transaction and the settlement both are same date. You call cash date, right? So same day things happening. Spot date, second working day from the cash date or after tomorrow, day after tomorrow. There are 2 days happening. Say if the transaction happening on the 25th is the transaction happening. Every transaction happening in this example 25th. You can see settlement taking place 2 days after. That is what I put 27th June. If it is a term transaction on the 25th, all the transaction happening today, but settlement tomorrow. Term rate means only 1 day. You can see 26th is the term date. These are date. If you look at the rate, you can see I have given the rate. So spot rate, cash rate. You can see spot rate, cash rate. Say the rate quoted and transacted today for settlement on the spot date mean spot date mean it takes 2 days. Say today the say a dollar in terms of rupee 201 rupees, 201 rupee and 70 cents. So this is the spot rate. So that means this is the rate the bank is quoting as a spot rate. That means if you go to the bank, you do a transaction today, they will give you a rate 201 rupees 70 cents, but the settlement will 2 days. The ultimate will be settlement will be done 2 days from the date of the transaction. That is 201 rupee and 70 cents. Now you look at the example here. This is usually the cash rate. Cash rate is usually lower than the spot rate. Why? You do the transaction today, settlement also today. That is called cash rate. Both are taking place today. But spot transaction today, settlement 2 days. Tom, transaction today, settlement tomorrow. So you have 3 rates. Cash, both are same date. Tom, settlement tomorrow, transaction today. Spot, transaction today, settlement 2 days after. So these are dates. The rate also accordingly vary. If the transaction today, settlement today, the rate will be very low. So you can see this is usually lower than the spot. So the cash rate is, you can see this cash rate is 201 rupee 50 cents. Because you do the settlement transaction today, the cash rate is 201 rupee 50 cents. Whereas spot rate is 201 cents 70 because you are doing a settlement 2 days after. The 2 days is unable to predict. So bank will charge more, right? But if you settle tomorrow, you can see the Tom rate. So you can see the Tom rate, which is 201 rupees 60 cents. It is in between. So if the spot rate is 201.70, the Tom rate should be little lesser, 201 rupees and 60 cents. Cash rate much lesser, 201 cents 50 cents. So you can see the highlighting. So highlight the word cash rate, highlight the rate 201.50 is the cash rate because slightly lesser than the spot rate. Tom rate slightly lesser than the again spot rate, which is 201.60. So you can see the difference between these date and the rates. So in exchange rate, you have a spot date or spot rate. You have a cash date or a cash rate. Tom date or a Tom rate. So in simple, if you do a transaction today and the settlement also taking place today, it is called cash rate or date is cash date. Both are doing same day. Spot mean do the transaction today, settlement 2 days after. So the rate will be little higher. If you do the transaction today, settlement tomorrow, Tom rate or Tom date. So lesser than the spot rate. The lowest rate will be cash rate because you don't take any risk. Do the transaction today, do the settlement today, the lowest rate. Right. So the forward rate, definitely forward rate is something that future, right? So that is you call forward. You do the transaction today, settlement for future, maybe 3 months, maybe 9 months, maybe 6 months. That is how the. So now you can see what is cash rate, what is buying rate. Buy and sell transaction today and settlement tomorrow is called next working day. You call next working day, Tom rate. Spot, buy and sell transaction agreed for the settlement delivery on the second working day from the date of the transaction. If the date of the, take the date of the transaction as today, for example. Let's say if the date of the transaction today and the settlement also on the same day is you call cash rate. Date of the transaction today, settlement tomorrow, next working day, Tom rate. Date of the transaction today, settlement second working day, 2 days, spot. Buy and sell the transaction, settlement will be taking place future. That is called forward rate. So you know the rates between these 2 rates now. That is how the rates are quoted, right? Example. So you take that example I have given in the notes, you can take it down. Those are the example, right? You need not write it again. In the note I have given, right? Right. Now we are going to look at the Basel committee. You know Basel, in the question paper, we studied Basel 2, Basel 3. What is this Basel committee? First of all, tell me, is it a Basel place or anything else? What is Basel? Where is Basel? Can anybody? Is it a Basel as an abbreviation, or is it a Basel a particular place, or is it Basel is something else? Can anybody? Actually, Basel is a city in Switzerland. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Basel is a city in Switzerland. It's a city. What happened in 1974? The G10 countries, central bank governors, and the finance ministers of this respective country met at the place called Basel, and they discussed. In 74, there had been some issues prior to 74. There had been a lot of crises. So the top countries got together and they find out whether they have any solution for this matter. When the crisis come only, they join. So what happened in 1974, all these top 10 countries, G10 countries, can anybody know what is G10 country? These are top 10 countries. G10 countries like USA, Canada, UK, Japan. In Asia, I think only Japan. There are 6 European countries like Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, Sweden, Netherlands. These are G10 countries. Switzerland also joined subsequently. Actually, the 11 countries are there, but they still call them as a G10 country. Switzerland also included. In 1974, the G10 countries joined in Basel place. The G10 countries formed much before 1974, but they met it in Basel, a city called Basel in Switzerland. Then subsequently, Switzerland also added to the G10 country, but they became 11th country. But that group goes as G10 country. But Switzerland also included, right? Now, if you look at Basel Committee, there are 28 countries are joined in Basel member. But Basel, what do? They look at all the issues the banks are faced with, and they come out with some recommendation. These are global. These are global. These are top 10 countries in the world. All countries that I referred are top 10 countries in the world. USA, Canada, UK, Japan, Germany, France, Italy, Belgium, Sweden, Netherlands. These are top 10 countries in the world, right? They joined together and they met at a place called Basel and they discussed and they started publishing recommendations. So those recommendations are only Basel 1, Basel 2, Basel 3. The current version is Basel 3. So that is called Basel. Those are considered as, they want to make sure the banking sectors are robust, stable. Where is the risk? Where do they find the bank failures are? Where it is coming from? They identify those risks. So they develop some recommendation. These are mitigating risk factors. So they found most of the time banks failures are the reason behind they have a lesser capital. They don't have a liquidity. When everybody coming, they don't have money. That is how the bank became fail. Or there are bad losses happen. Bank do not have enough capital to absorb. These are the reason they found. And there will be tight supervision on the banks, where the banks are not supervised by the regulator. So these are some of the recommendations the Basel found and they gave. The Basel committee joined together and they started issuing recommendation by this committee. Then only it's become Basel committee. So the first issued guideline was 1987. That is Basel 1. The recommendation they issued are considered as Basel 1 in 1987. So then subsequently they issued recommendation 2, Basel 2 recommendation, then Basel 3 recommendation. These are the recommendation Basel. So actually the full name of Basel goes as, you can write down if you want, right? This goes as Basel Committee. You can write down the full name, Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. Right? Basel Committee on Banking. That is what sometimes you say BCBS. What is BCBS stand for? Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. Right? Then sometimes you might come across somewhere BIS. in BC, along with BCBS, you also get a letter word called BIS. The BIS stands for Bank for International Settlement. BIS stands for Bank for International Settlement. So remember, the full Basel Committee goes as, the name is goes as, you call Basel committees. In brief, you call Basel is a place in Switzerland. They joined, all G10 countries joined, that is became a committee. Committee means group of people. That is what you call Basel Committee in brief. The full name should have Basel Committee on Banking Supervision at the Bank for International Settlement, at BIS. So it's a place called Bank for International Settlement. So that is how the full name goes. I read it again. Though you briefly say Basel Committee, the real name, you need not to write the real name, but to know the real name, right? Just take it down. It's called Basel Committee on Bank Supervision at the Bank for International Settlement. At the Bank for International Settlement. That's what I call BIS. So when you write BCBS, sometimes you can see in some reading material, BIS come. Then you will get confused. What is BIS stand for? That is Bank for International Settlement. So they want to say the Basel Committee headquartered in Basel. The place is called BIS. That is Bank for International Settlement. So actually, these are 10 countries joined together, formed a committee called Basel. So they are now saying the Basel Committee could be located in BIS. That is Bank for International Settlement, which again in Switzerland, headquartered in Switzerland, right? So that is how the Basel Committee. What is the purpose of the Basel Committee? To ensure the banking sector globally are stable, are risk-free. The bank itself taking high risk. So you need to mitigate the risk. So it's a risk management framework. So when they analyzed, they found there are certain criteria, certain factor you need to concentrate more. One is the capital base. Other one is a liquidity. Other one is a continuous supervision. So these are the three factors. So you need to supervise, you need to have a capital base, right? So that is how the Basel Committee worked towards to globally all the banks to be sound. So you should have enough capital. So you should, that is what the capital adequacy, all this CAR and all we learned in the ratios, capital adequacy ratio. Also we learn liquidity ratio. These are the two things the Basel Committee highly recommending. Everybody should have more capital. And they recommend banks should have a minimum capital of so much. So that in the event of something happen, they can withstand. They can withstand, mean they can bear that pain. Right? That is what. So in Basel II, they gave, in Basel II, don't worry about the Basel I, it's just some recommendation. Their actual recommendation have been followed in Basel II. So Basel II recommendation came in 1990s it came, right? Implementation was done in Sri Lanka and all in 2000s. By the time when we follow this Basel Committee in 90s, later 90s, right? Basel II recommendation will have a 3 pillars. Basel II recommendation, right? Now current version is Basel III. Now Basel II has 3 pillars. What are the 3 pillars? One is minimum capital. I told you they are always emphasizing on minimum capital. Supervisor review. The regulator has to review that. Then the market discipline. Market discipline means you need to disclose everything to the market. So there are 3 pillars. What are the 3 pillars in Basel II recommendation? Minimum capital, supervisor review, market discipline. The minimum capital is every bank should have a minimum capital. So they found when they discuss all these issues, bank failures, risk, they put all those discussion into 3 pillars. One is they put the minimum capital. Every bank should have a minimum capital. Then supervisor review. There should be continuous monitoring on these banks. That is what bank supervision department in central bank form. They are supervising. That is the role. You need to have a continuous supervision. Otherwise, the bank failure cannot be stopped, right? Then market discipline. Market discipline is to you continue to improve by furnishing information, details to everything transparent. So that is you call market discipline. The market discipline. So you can see when there's an annual report, there's a disclosure coming. Now every bank, when they issued annual report, there's a disclosure. That is a recommendation of Basel Committee. The Basel Committee wants every bank to disclose something. And somebody's mic is on. Please switch off it. Right? So you can see Basel recommendations are best practices. So the Basel II has 3 pillars: capital, minimum capital, supervisory review, market disciplines, right? Then came Basel III. The current version is Basel III. It is published in 2010. I think the taking over period, because when the recommendations are brought in, remember, until 2010 Basel II was there, till 2000 from 2010 onwards Basel III came. But remember, these Basel recommendation, when they bring this recommendation, these are global standard. It's up to the country to follow this or not. But every developed country are adopting these practices, best practices. So eventually countries like us, being a developing country, we are also falling into this. Whether we like it or not, we have to get into this recommendation. We have to follow this recommendation. Why? Can anybody tell me why do we follow this recommendation? Why we can just ignore it and say this is not for us, this is only for developed country. As a developing country, we don't want this. Can we do that? Because we can't do that, because what happens is we need to grow ourselves first of all, right? We need to grow, and we are dealing with all multinational banks. Otherwise, we can't do international foreign exchange transaction. We need to compete with other banks globally. Then what happens? When you do transaction, they will ask are we compliant to this Basel recommendation? Because we need to ensure, we need to make them comfortable that we are also following Basel recommendation. Whether we are being a developing country, we need, because what happened, we have been dragged into international level. When we go for a foreign exchange aid from IMF, World Bank, and the first thing they find, they would like to find out, are we Basel recommendation compliant country? That is the reason we also got into this Basel recommendation. Now, central bank is very, very focused, and they are gone through this Basel III proposal. Remember, when the Basel Committee bringing this certain recommendation, it takes longer period to study and take whatever applicable to our country. So you can see the bigger difference between developed country and developing country. So some recommendation, developed country like USA, Canada, maybe German, France, UK, they can Japan, they can recommend and they can follow. But country like us, we are in a below average country. We are being developing country. All the recommendation we won't be able to follow. But some of the recommendation we have to study, and whatever applicable we have to follow. That is the reason our central bank has to study this accord means these recommendation, and whatever more suitable for us, we will extract and we will implement internally as a national guideline. This is how we should follow. Though the global recommendation is this, but from there, stemming from there, we take what is suits for our country, we recommend. That is how central bank recommending all our local bank to follow the Basel III recommendation. So accordingly, you have seen central bank also saying every bank should have a CAR, capital adequacy ratio. We saw that 8%. Total capital adequacy 12%. Why all of a sudden central bank brought this? Because we have to par with the international banking industry, global industry. Otherwise, we will be isolated, right? Certain poor country may not gone into that level. Some of the African country, they might not even know what is Basel, right? But as a developing at a developing nation, and as a Sri Lanka, we are very much proud to say we have got into this Basel, IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standard. These are international standard, right? So we have got into this, right? So that is how the Basel III recommendation. The Basel III recommendation, remember, Basel III recommendation based on the Basel II, same three pillars. Same three pillars. It is kind of a booster. So the framework remains same. The minimum capital, supervisory, market discipline, all that are same. But you can see the last point, the Basel III is just a booster to Basel II. So I have summarized, I just put it here. You can see this diagram. Pillar 1, Pillar 2, even Basel III, same diagram. You can see enhance minimum capital. The minimum capital wording is there. Like Basel II, we look at here. Minimum capital, you can, in this Basel II recommendation, they brought three pillars. These three pillars are being used in the Basel III recommendation. That is the Basel II plus in the Basel III, the latest version. So they take the same foundation. The pillars are the same. Only thing is they have enhanced. They have adopted something additionally. But based on the same three pillars. So the Basel II are the foundation. Basel III, same foundation in a booster version. So you can see the three wording will remain in the Basel III also. Minimum capital. So you can look at the chart now. Yes, it is saying enhanced minimum capital. The enhanced word is coming there. Enhanced is the booster. And they are not only capital, they also included liquidity. Because what happened in 2008, in USA sub-mortgage issue, most of the banks failed because they didn't have a proper liquidity. So they found not only capital, the liquidity also should be included. So in Basel II, it was only talking about minimum capital. In Basel III, not only minimum capital, the liquidity also should be taken care of. That is the reason Basel III recommendation are the same Basel II pillars, but it's enhanced version. That is what you call booster. So Basel III pillar 1 is saying minimum capital and liquidity requirement. You can see enhanced supervision review. Enhanced supervision review. So supervision reviews, the supervisory review will be the same, but it has to be enhanced level, more stringent, more strict manner, right? Then the enhanced disclosure and market discipline. So they brought the word called disclosure and market discipline. So you have to have a disclosure. That is how the annual report after 2013-14, every bank started issuing disclosure. You have to disclose all the information to the general public. So there is a transparent. So these are good recommendations globally recommended by the Basel Committee. So there are countries who are following this recommendation. They follow and study, and they also implement it. So that whenever somebody internationally coming to our country and asking whether are we Basel III compliant, we can proudly say we are Basel III compliant. So we are also like international bank. We are also following the international standard. So we are also considered as now when we go for a financially assistance from various multinational organization, we are proudly, we can say we are recommended. We are Basel compliant. We are Basel III recommendation. So in Sri Lanka, central bank has brought this Basel compliant, and we are adopting all these Basel III recommendation. That is the reason you can see capital adequacy ratio has been increased, liquidity asset ratio has been increased 20%, and all the bank has to publish disclosure, and the supervisory is very stringent supervisory. All that is because of the Basel recommendation. So we are recommending the Basel recommendation. Basel committee regularly, committee members are joined together in Basel. They give good recommendation. Why these recommendations are, why they are keep on developing this recommendation? You can see bank failures are taking place in different regions. In 2008, USA has collapsed almost. There is a sub-mortgage issue came. That means when somebody go and mortgage a property, that bank, the USA bank, has the practice of not keeping the mortgage as a security, and they sell it in the secondary market. They go and sell it in the secondary market. They don't keep a longer liability in their books. They sell it. What happened? When they keep on selling it, same mortgage sold over to so many people. Then what happened? When there is an economic recession came, the market property value has come down. All the bank got affected. Why? It's a ripple effect. Why? When the property prices come down, same property have been mortgaged and sold it for different people. So that chain of event got together. As a result, the entire USA banks, most of the USA banks got into worst failure in 2008. That is how the bigger failure came in. I told you some banks. We studied the bank, right? Merrill Lynch, right? Those are bigger failure in the bank. What is the other name? Lehman Brothers, you know the name, huh? Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, or the failures of these. So that is how the 2010 recommendation, Basel III, came with a very strong recommendation. Every bank should increase their capital. Every bank should have a high liquidity. Every bank should have a tighten in their supervisory review. Every bank should disclose. These are the recommendations, right? So now we are following this recommendation. So what does Basel III aim to achieve? Basel III aim to achieve whatever failure, whatever things they couldn't cover in Basel II, they try to cover in Basel III. Simple as that, right? It is perceived to address shortcoming in Basel II. Whatever you recommend in Basel II, when we are trying to implementing something else coming. Now we are saying Basel III is fully compliant, everybody happy. Maybe other 2 years down the line, we might face some other problem. Then there could be other bank failure come. Then the Basel committee again join, and they will again recommend something in order to address that issue. Maybe recommendation 4, Basel 4. I think already they are trying to do something in Basel 4 already, right? Basel 4 already, there is a proposal going on. Not officially we are going to adapt it, but there is a Basel 4 started. So Basel 3 is the one we are following now, right? Okay, underestimated the losses of capital should absorb. These are the Basel 2 Basel 2 couldn't cover. Now Basel 3 try to cover. So absorbing capacity. So you should have enough capital to absorb. Forgot liquidity risk. They didn't Basel 2 doesn't talk about the liquidity. Where the USA crisis, because bank didn't have enough liquidity. You should have more liquidity. You should have more capital. That is the recommendation in Basel III. So the Basel III aim to address whatever previous Basel II and Basel I couldn't recognize. These are new issues. So the Basel III aim to address the new issues, new risk, new crisis, right? Overestimated efficacy of Pillar 1 containing. So the Pillar 1 doesn't talk about anything on capital. So Basel III aim to address that. Underestimated counterparty risk. Counterparty risk means whenever you do a transaction with the other party, you have to look at the other party risk also. So that is how central bank, when they recommend the Basel III, most of the issues that was not in Basel I and Basel II, Basel III identified all the issue. When they implement, central bank also try to take the maximum from the Basel III, so that our banking sector also, if there is an issue come, we are strong. You can see in this recent last 2 years, 2020 and 21, we had an issue. We had this risk due to the COVID. But you can see proudly, all the banks are financially no failures is reported because of the Basel III recommendation. Every country follow the Basel III recommendation, because every country recommended Basel III recommendation have been implemented in most of the country. So you didn't see any bank failure during this 2-year period, despite the worst scenario came into COVID. Bank failure didn't report. That means that's the success of the Basel III recommendation, because no failure is reported during the 2 year. If not, this is the high period, a lot of banks would have been failed, where the economy is not doing well. But the banks somehow or other managing even a unpredictable, unprecedented time where nobody expected this kind of environment will come, right? So you can see these are you call new normal. So this is in a new normal situation. So we need to address this issue, right? So that is where these recommendations, when you take a precautions, whatever bad thing happen, take it in your personal life. When you have some bad experience in your not a person, in anybody's life, when you have some bad experience, right, tough time, what you do, what is the best course of action you should take it to come out with the problem. Then you are well prepared in future. So see, business continuity plan. If the central bank implemented business continuity plan, that is one of the recommendation by the Basel. Now see what happened. So when central bank implemented business continuity plan, every bank were working, even COVID time. If not Basel recommendation didn't follow, all the banks would have been collapsed. People are not going to work, banks have collapsed, entire economy would have gone for 6. No, nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. Every banks are working. Even 2 years, we had a terrible problem from 2020 March, this came to Sri Lanka. We are continuously working. Banks are continuously working. Even when the country is locked down, we were working. Why? We follow the good practices. We are well aware of everything because we follow the Basel III international recommendation. We were managed to sustain even without any failure. All the banks were somehow were managed. The crisis come and go. Foreign exchange crisis come because our economy is such, our revenue has been stopped, right? Where foreign exchange inflow has to come from a staple of 3 main factors. That got affected. That is why we are today in this situation. The tourism industry got affected, where is one of the major income flow. The worker remittances, most of the workers are here due to COVID. And even the other countries, even the Sri Lankan expatriate workers are working. When you have a global pandemic, you lose your job. So the income coming from employment also been limited. Then your exports, your normal exports also been, the export also you show the contraction, reduction. Then your inflow is limited, very much limited. So about 4 to 5 billion is coming to every year from tourism. It is zero. So country like us, it's a bigger hit. So we don't have a foreign reserve now. That is the crisis now we are facing with. Why, when you are working in a bank, you say, we don't have foreign reserve to do a payment, because we don't have any foreign reserve. We are badly affected because of this. But the banking system has successfully continued. Because if the banking system, if we didn't follow the Basel III recommendation, by now, the entire banking sector would have gone. The country would have gone, collapse, right? So these are the best practices. Now you can see, even with this recommendation, all the banks are successfully, no failures have been reported. That itself success by the Basel III recommendation. From the Basel III recommendation, one of the other thing they found in systemically important institution, that is bigger bank. They feel in Basel III recommendation, bigger banks should have more capital than the smaller bank. That is what you call systemically important bank. We studied domestically systemically important bank. That means bigger bank. In any country, you have a bigger bank. Bigger bank have more risk than the smaller bank. Therefore, bigger bank should have more capital than the smaller bank. So I think we studied when we were doing ratios, right? I think let me show these ratios. I think here you can see systemically important banks. These are bigger banks, too big to fail. Too big to fail means these are bigger banks. So in Sri Lanka, we have domestically systemically important bank. I think we got into 3 buckets. You saw that Bank of Ceylon, Commercial Bank, and People's Bank, HNB, all others are in non-systemically important bank. We studied that. That is this. Systemically important bank means bigger bank. Okay. So let us go back here where we stopped it here. Yeah, this is achieving. What is Basel III aim to achieve? Quantity, to raise the quantity, quality, consistent transparency of the capital base. Yeah, you should have a quality capital. You should have a quantity wise also, you should have more capital. You should maintain this capital. There should be transparency in your capital. So your capital base is the paramount important in Basel III recommendation. They found the failure of all the banks because they didn't have enough capital. That is what they bought the enhanced everybody's capital. That is what CAR has been highly spoken because of the Basel III recommendation. Then the framework of strengthening the risk coverage of the capital framework. Then they also talks about you should have additional buffer, additional capital conservation buffer. Mean when you are having a capital, try to have more capital in different form. Increase your capital in different forms so that when there is a risk come, you are well prepared to absorb such risk. So the Basel aim more focusing on good quality capital base. They are more focusing on capital base plus the liquidity. And due to this, they brought two ratios. Basel III recommended two ratios. Remember the two ratios. One is liquidity coverage ratio. Other one is net stable funding ratio. They brought two ratios in Basel III recommendation. So Basel III brought two new ratios. What is the two new ratios? One is LCR, that is liquidity coverage ratio. Other one is a net stable funding ratio. So they found a failure of the most bank didn't have enough liquidity. So Basel III recommendation, when they addressed the Basel in 2008 crisis, they brought two ratios and say every bank should follow these ratios and try to implement these ratios. Liquidity coverage ratio. In Sri Lanka, central bank also brought this liquidity coverage ratio and net stable funding ratio. Last 3 years, we have been implementing. I think in central bank said by 2020, 17-8, I think they started the liquidity coverage ratio in Sri Lanka. Globally, that is started, but when we adopted the Basel III recommendation in 2015 to 2019, central bank tried to achieve the LCR as per the mandatory requirement. In 2015 to 2019, the period 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, these 5-year period, central bank tried to implement the full recommendation of Basel. One of the recommendation of LCR also central bank taken care of, and central bank given time period, because these recommendations cannot implement overnight. It takes long time. Now you can see the Basel III recommendation came in 2010, but our central bank has to go and study this entire package, and whatever suits for our country, they recommend it and they formulate, and then they issue direction to the banks to follow. So those studies take long period, because this is very, very, very extensive studies. So central bank recommended Basel III recommendation to complete by 2019. They are given period for 5 years, our banks, all the banks in Sri Lanka, to follow from 2015 to 2019. These 5-year period, most of the recommendation we are completing. So we are now almost compliant with the Basel III recommendation. Remember, these recommendations take longer period to implement. So central bank took about 3-4 years to study. They started recommending. Most of the implementation started in 2013-14 period. 16 itself, from 15 onward, they are given target to achieve by 2019 fully recommendation. Even they bought the liquidity coverage ratio to be completed by 2019 from 2015, and net stable funding. These are the two ratios. Remember, liquidity coverage ratio, this is a simple thing. Let me explain what is liquidity coverage ratio. Simple. What is liquidity coverage ratio? They found, the Basel committee found, when there is an issue in the banking, when there is a bank issue, within 30 days, everybody coming and taking the money. When there is a crisis in a bank, everybody coming and taking the money. So your outflow of next 30 days period, within 1 month period, for the next 30 days period, whatever outflow, you have to have an inflow. That is what they say, hold high liquid assets. We know what is high liquid assets: cash, treasury bill, reserves with central bank, all these are high liquid assets. So they wanted bank to have high liquid asset which should cover next 30 days outflow. So which is very, very difficult to achieve. They say, what is this equation? The LCR should be equivalent to 100 or more than 100, the recommendation. So the recommendation says the outflow of next 30 days liquidity, outflow of, let's say, a particular bank have 100 million outflow. They should have 100 million outflow next 30 days. Their high liquid asset, it should be 100 or more than 100. So you should have high liquid asset which should be equivalent or more than next 30 days outflow. Say everybody coming to take their money out for next 30 days when there's a crisis. That is, say 100 million. Next day, one bank going to have 100 million cash going out from their channel. People are going to pull out the money from the bank. That 100 million is the calculated amount for next 30 days. So that the cover that 100 million, bank should have high liquid asset more than 100 million. Then only you can meeting the requirement of equivalent to 100% or more than 100%. Yeah, right. So you should have high liquid asset more than 100% of next 30-day requirement. So if you are in this situation, if any crisis come, you will not go into failure. That means you are holding enough liquid asset. If something happen, everybody want to take their money, you have enough money to pay because you are holding high liquid asset for next 30 days outflow. That is the liquidity coverage ratio. So the central bank timeline given, by 2015, every bank should have 60%. By 2015, they just write down 2015 central bank said 60%. Every bank should have 60%. You can't overnight 100%. Huh? They are given time frame. About 5 years they are given. 2015, every bank should have 60%. 2016, 70%. 80. By 19, you should have 100%. So they are given 100% by 2019. So central bank given time frame from starting from 2015, 60%. By 2019, every bank should have 100%. But last year, what happened? Central bank reduced to 90% because they felt it 2020 is the crisis time. With a crisis time, you can't implement this regulation. Crisis, you have to be lenient. So in 2020, though 2019, every bank met the 100%, 2020 central banks are very lenient. They brought down, they cut down to under to in 2020, they say 90% is the mandatory level. In a crisis situation, you can't expect 100% high liquid asset. You have to be practicable also. So 2020, you can say 2019, all the bank has to meet 100%. But 2020, due to the crisis, central bank reduced the liquid asset ratio to 90%. To 90%, right? 2020, 90%. Same as net stable funding ratio. So what we'll do, I think you are running out of time. I have to finish few more slides here. So we will continue this slide, plus I have one more session to cover. Probably I will start next class, try to cover it up. If you want, we will have one more class. I will check with them. Next class we will have, next Sunday we will have the class. Try to finish the syllabuses. I will try my, we should be able to finish the entire syllabus by next week. If time permits, we will have one more session. If time permits, and if I have an allocation, we will have. By any chance, do you have any seminar or revision on not in the next Sunday, Sunday after next Sunday? That is, when is the next Sunday? 31st today. Next Sunday will be 7th, right? 7th is next Sunday. Do you have any seminar on the 14th? Revision. Do you have any revision on the 14th? Can anybody? You are not known. I don't know whether you are aware there is a revision. Never mind. We will check it. You will have that anyway.